Okay, now you get into some kind of weird stuff. We need to graph this line. And this isn't what the assignment's about, but it leads into it nicely. Okay, the y and the x are on opposite sides, with the y being by itself. The x has all the operations going on, so that's in slope-intercept form. Okay, so I want to put slope, y-intercept. So the slope is 1/2. Nice fraction for me. And remember, m is the slope, okay? And b is the y-intercept. That is important to note today. And it's mx, so m is 1/2 plus b. b is -4 with the 0. Okay, so I go down 1, 2, 3, 4. On the y, remember this is y, this is x. And slope is rise over run. So vertical over horizontal. That's positive, so vertical, and that's horizontal. So I go up 1, right 2. Do it again. Up 1, right 2. Okay? And I take my ruler and graph a nice big line through the whole plane. It's continuous, so arrows on both ends. You don't need to do the domain restriction. Okay, now I'd like you to tell me two things. I want you to tell me what the slope of the line is. Well, you know that. You know it's 1/2. And I want you to find a point on the line. How about this one? Okay. So if I were to label that point, that's at 2 on the x-coordinate, and it's down 3 on the y. So 2, -3 would be a point. Now, in today's assignment, what they're going to give you, they're going to tell you the slope, they're going to tell you a point, and you have to construct the equation yourself. That's one part. Now, next part. Graph the equation. Once again, the y by itself. Y has no operations going on with it. The x does. So that is in slope-intercept form. Okay, so that's m and b. So the slope and y-intercept. So the slope we call m, the y-intercept we call b. So the slope is -4. Now, if our slope's an integer, we need to make it a fraction by putting a 1 under it. And the y-intercept would be 2, +2. Okay, that's a coordinate point, though. Okay, so x is 0, and we go up to 2. Then we go down 4, right 1. Okay, you're always going to go to the right. Don't ever go to the left. And also stop putting the y-intercept on the x-axis. Okay, I've seen that too. Then down 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1. Okay. I'm going to do it again. Down 1, 2, 3, 4, right 1. And we're going to make our line. Okay, now it says label 2 points on the line. Here and here. So on the x we're at 1, and then on the y we're down 2. So 1, -2 would be the coordinate. So there's 1 point. Okay, and here this point right here, we're at 2 on the x, and we're down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the y, so -6. Okay, so, and then other problems are going to give us 2 points, and we have to come up with that equation. Well, that's going to be kind of complicated if we don't have a plan, but luckily there is an algorithm plan that will work every time. So you have to write the equation of a line that would have a slope, and I want you to put m above that, of 5, and then this is another point on the line, okay? It has an x-coordinate of -1 with a y-coordinate of 6. Now, here's how we're going to set this up. We're going to put y equals, and then we're going to put blank x, that's m, plus blank, and that's b, okay? You're going to do that, or if you're not doing that, there's no help for you, okay? So we need to find out what m is, and we need to find out what b is. The m is a slope, which we know is 5, so I put a 5 there, and that goes here. Now, the hard part on these is figuring out what the b is, what the y-intercept is. So here's what you're going to write down. You're going to write down y equals mx plus b, and you're going to want an operator of times between the m and the x. Now, here's what you do. You're going to replace the y, the m, the x. Cross them all out. And you're going to put a 1 in front of the b, okay? You're not replacing b with 1, you're putting a 1 in front of it, so it's 1b. Okay, now, y, m, and x have to be replaced with these numbers here, okay? So the y is 6, so we're going to put a 6 here, just put it over the top of it. The m is 5 times, and then our x would be -1. Okay, now I need you to do that times operation. So we have 6 with the equals, and then I got to operate there. 5 times -1 is -5 plus the 1b, okay? So I really don't need to divide. I just need to undo the adding a -5 to the b. So I plus 5, and 11 equals b. Okay, so we're going to put 11 here. Now, this is the answer, and here's how I test my answer to see that it's right. I want you to punch in 5 in your calculator, and then times. Now, replace your x with -1, and then do your adding operation of 11. Now, why -1? Well, because that's the x, okay? 6. Now, does the 6 match what the y is? It does, okay? So that equation is correct. Y is equal to 5x plus 11. Okay, next problem. Line has a slope of 7, an m, and one of the coordinates is when x is 2, y has to be -3. So y equals blank x plus blank, and then m and b are the two blanks we're trying to figure out values to put in there. So m and b. So my m I know is 7, okay, so we put a 7 there. And then to find b, we use a formula that you have to know. Y equals m x plus b, and the m and x are times, okay? Now I'm going to cross out the y, the m, and the x, and I'm going to put a 1 in front of the b as a coefficient. Okay, so we need to replace these with values that come from over here. So the y would be -3. The m is going to be 7. We already have established that fact. And then the x value is 2. Okay, so you got -3. By the way, it's xy every time. Okay, x comes before y in the alphabet, so xy. So we have -3 equals, and then I take 7 times 2, and that's 14, plus 1b. Okay. Now, I can lose the 1 here. I don't need to divide, but I do need to undo the adding of +14, and I would subtract 14. Okay, -3 minus 14. Think of a number line. If you're at -3 on a number line, you move 14 places to the left because you're subtracting, you'd be at -17. Okay, so -17 is that. Okay, now to test our equation, punch in 7, the times operation. Now, x we're going to replace with 2 on the calculator, and then we're going to add -17. Now, when I hit equals, this needs to equal -3. It does. So I know that is the correct equation given the information. Okay, next one. Y equals plus blank. Okay, so MB. So it has a slope of negative 3/4 and an XY coordinate. So the slope is negative 3/4. So you do have a calculator, so your slope could be a fraction. That's fine, negative 3/4. Now B, we need to know that formula. Y equals M times X plus B. We're going to eliminate these three variables, and this one I don't eliminate, but I'm going to put a 1 in front of it. Okay, so Y is replaced with 1. M is replaced with negative 3/4, negative 3/4, okay? Times X is replaced with negative 8. Okay, now we got 1 equals, now I have an operation to do over here. I need to take negative 3/4 times negative 8, and that's 6. So 6 plus 1b. Well, I can ditch the 1. I don't need to divide by 1, but I do need to undo the adding of 6. So I subtract 6, it's positive, and 1 minus 6 is negative 5, and that equals b. So negative 5 is my y-intercept, I think. Okay, now to test your answer, you go negative 3, ABC 4, times, now instead of x, we're going to replace x with negative 8. And then add negative 5. Now when I hit equals, I better get an answer of 1, because if x is negative 8, y needs to be 1. And it is, okay? All right, next problem. Y equals blank x plus blank mb. So the slope is m. And this is when x is 8, y is negative 4. So m and b. So the m is negative 3. Now to find this, it's y equals m times x plus b. Okay, I eliminate these three variables, put a 1 in front. Okay, so y is negative 4. M is negative 3. And the x is 8. So I have negative 4 by itself, and then I need to do an operation there. Negative 3 times 8 is negative 24 plus 1b. Now I can ditch the 1. Okay, I don't need to divide, but I do need to do undo the adding of negative 24. So I would plus 24 and plus 24. So negative 4 plus 24 is 20 equals b. So 20 is the number being added as a y-intercept. Okay, so you got negative 3. Instead of x, I'm going to hit times 8 plus 20. Now when I hit this equals, I need to get a negative 4 answer. If I don't, I have something wrong. Okay? There we go. That's right. Okay, now let's go to the back side. This time the information changes. So it's like this. They give you 2 points and you have to somehow get the equation, okay? So I know the equation should look like this. I want all these equations in slope-intercept form. So we know we have a y, no operations with the y, and then an x that's being multiplied by something, and something's being added to it. So m and b. So I need to find my m and I need to find my b. Well, the problem is I don't have a slope, okay? I need to find the slope myself. So if x is 4, y is 7, x is 5, y is 1. Now, the way to find the slope is y minus y divided by x minus x. Kind of a tight fit there, but you can do it, okay? All right, so I'm going to replace the variables. Now here are my y's. They come from each coordinate. You can go 7 minus 1, which I'm going to do, But if I do that, then with the x's, I got to take 4 minus 5. So 7 minus 1 is 6, and 4 minus 5 is negative 1. Now with the slope, okay, I want you to go first divide it, okay? Divide, okay, let me think of how I want to explain this. If you have a negative just on bottom, please move it to the top, okay? So negative 6, 8, and do the ABC, okay? It's just negative 6, okay? So I put negative 6. If you have a negative on bottom, move it to the top. If you have two negatives, you get rid of the negatives. They cancel out. Okay, and to find the b, I do the same thing. So y equals m times x plus b. Sorry, I was a little fuzzy on that. If you get a negative in the denominator, move it to the top. You're allowed to do that. If you have negative, negative, you cancel them. You want your negative on top. You can just move it. Okay, and then do the ABC. That one divides evenly, okay, so you really don't need it if you know that mentally, okay, but I don't want really decimals on these standard problems. Only on story problems do I want that divided, actually. Okay, so eliminate the y, the m, and the x. Now, and put a 1 in front of the b. Don't replace the b, though. Now, you're like, well, there's two xy's. Which one do I use? Doesn't matter. Pick one or the other. I'll pick the second one. I'm going to pick the second one throughout this. You can pick the first, and if this is truly a line, it'll be the same answer if you pick the second. So the y is 1. The m is the negative 6 that we just have up here. And then the x is the 5. Okay, so I have 1. I have to do the operation. Negative 6 times 5 is negative 30 plus 1b. Now we can ditch the 1. We don't need a 1 as a multiplier on a variable, but we have to undo the adding of negative 30. So I plus 30 and plus 30, and 31 equals b. Now, let's test and see if this is right. So I got negative 6 times, and then we're going to replace the x with 4 first, and then we're going to add 31. Now this should equal 7, because this tells me if you put 4 in the equation for x, you get an answer of 7, which I do. Now we can also try the other coordinate. I have negative 6 times, now let's replace the x with 5 and add the 31. Now I'm expecting to get an answer of 1 here, because if I put 5 in the equation for x, y is 1, which it is. So that indeed is the correct equation. That's my answer. Okay, next problem. There's a line that has when x is 0, y is 6. When x is 5, y is 2. So y equals blank x plus blank. So I need to know the m and the b here. So I do not have an m value because I did not know the slope, but so I need to figure it out. And the slope is y minus y divided by x minus x. Okay, so the y's, let's circle those so we know that we'll put those on top. You can go 6 minus 2 or 2 minus 6. The order doesn't matter. If I do that, I need to take 0 minus 5. Okay, 6 minus 2 is 4. 0 minus 5 is negative 5. Now, once again, if we end up with a negative in the denominator, move it to the top. You don't want the negative because otherwise your calculator will have a syntax error when you do the ABC. So negative 4, ABC 5. Okay, it's still negative 4 over 5, so I just put that as my m. Negative 4/5 is the slope. Now my b. Y equals mx plus b. Remember, the m is multiplied by the x. Now the b we don't replace, okay? I'll even circle it. You need to replace all three of your variables at the beginning. All right, so For x and y, you pick one or the other. I'll pick this one. Okay, so I'll replace the x with 2. I'm going to replace the m with negative 4/5. That's negative 4/5. If you can't see it, negative 4/5, because that's what I have here. Times, and then the x I'll replace with 5. So I have 2. And I need to do the multiplication, negative 4/5 times 5, and that's negative 4. Plus 1b. We can ditch the 1, but I need to undo the adding of negative 4. You don't undo adding by dividing, okay? You either add or subtract. Well, it's a negative, so we do the adding property of equality, and that's 6 equals b. Okay? All right, so let's test it. Negative 4abc5 times 0 plus 6. Now, I should get 6 as an answer, which it's pretty obvious I'm going to, because if I times by 0, it's 0 plus 6 is 6. Okay? Negative 4/5 times, let's do 5 now, plus 6. Now, if x is 5, y is supposed to be 2, so I'm expecting a 2, and I got it. Output of 2. Okay, my next one equals. Remember, all these are in slope-intercept form. Okay. Now, so we need to find our m and b values. So on this line, if x is negative 2, y is 5. If I input 2 for x, negative 1 is the result. So my m, the slope formula, y minus y, x minus x. Okay. So I'll do that over here. Okay, your y's are 5 and negative 1. I'm going to go 5 and negative 1. Now, if we're subtracting a negative number, you're going to want to make it plus plus. Makes more sense. And then I'm going to have negative 2. If I go 5 here, then I got to go negative 2 first and then 2. Okay, 5 plus 1 is 6. Negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4. Get that negative out of the denominator and put it in the numerator. Okay, so negative 6, ABC 4. I don't like mixed numbers when doing these. So if I do get a mixed number with the ABC, I go second ABC equals. Oh, so that's actually reduces to negative 3 over 2. Okay, that's why I want you to do the ABC, not just divided. So negative 3 over 2 is my slope. And my b, y equals mx plus b. So the m and x operations times. And then we got to protect our b here. Means don't replace it. He's not going anywhere. Now for y and x, you can pick one or the other. I'll pick that. So I'll use negative 1 for y. You can also use this. It'll be the same thing. M is negative 3 over 2. Okay, times. And if I'm picking negative 1, I need to pick 2 then for x. So negative 1, negative 3, ABC2 times 2. I got a negative 3 product. Plus 1b. You can ditch the 1 then. Okay, so add 3. Negative 1 plus 3 is 2, so 2 equals b. Okay, you can test it on your calculator. So negative 3 over 2 times, and then I'll try negative 2 plus 2. Now I did an input of negative 2. I better get an output of 5. I do. Negative 3 ABC2 times, and now I'm going to do an input of 2. And I need to get an output of negative 1. I did. Okay. That equation's gold. Okay, and then the last one. Y equals blank x plus blank. So this is m, this is b. So when x is input's negative 4, the output's negative 8. When the input's negative 8, the output's negative 11. So y minus y, x minus x. And then let's figure that out. Okay, so I can go -8 minus -11, or -11 minus -8. It doesn't matter. So I'll go -8, -11. There's a minus negative, so plus plus. Okay, now, if I do -8 first, then when I do the x's, I got to have -4, and then -8, minus -8. So plus plus. And this gives me 3. And this gives me 4. So I get 3 over 4. Now, there's no negatives to worry about. 3ABC4 is still 3/4. Okay, so that doesn't reduce or simplify, so 3/4. Then for the b, we'll be taking y equals mx plus b with the times here. Now we need to replace these and protect the b. B's not going anywhere. So I'll pick this second one. So I'll replace y with -11. M will be replaced with 3/4. And -8 will be the x then. So I will multiply. I need to operate. I need to take 3/4 times -8, and that's -6. Plus 1b. Okay. So I have a -6 being added, so I'll plus 6, and -11 plus 6 is -5. Okay, so -5 goes here. Okay, to test this, let's do an input-output test. So 3/4 times, and I think the x would be -4, and then plus -5. Now I better get an output of -8 here. Good. 3/4 times, let's do an input of -8 this time, plus -5. So if I do that input-output, I better get -11 for the output. -11. Okay, that's all I have to say on that. I hope it's been informative, and go from there.